This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rappin. Joining me this week, three friends that I'm going to split this Kit Kat bar with. Kara Shimborski.
I'm stealing the whole thing, Mike.
Paul Jasley.
Hello, humanoids.
And Nick White.
Hey.
Thank you guys for joining me this week. I'm so excited because this is the 7th annual I Read Comic Books episode. I don't know. This is the anniversary episode for I Read Comic Books. 7 years ago, we started this show. So this is us bringing in year 7. If you're new to the show, welcome. Episode 314 is where you decided to start. That's awesome. We're going to be talking about all things I Read Comic Books, especially what happened in the last year of the show. But before we get into any of that, I have two legally mandated questions that I have to ask, and that is, how have you been? How have comic books been? Let's start with you, Nick.
Things have been good. West Michigan weather watch would be snow on and off, on and off. You might be able to hear that from the fact that my neighbor just decided to start snow blowing literally the moment we started recording.
Nice.
It is just a mental mind game between the two of us during the summer. He starts lawn mowing right before we record the show. Is he listening in on all of the telecommunications at my house? I'm working on that. I'll get back to you. I probably should stop reading Department of Truth while that's going on. Okay. It is not helping.
No.
Yeah.
It's not paranoia if they're out to get you, Nick.
I mean, I need no convincing. In terms of what I've been reading, I did most recently read the first 2 issues of Hellboy, The Bones of Giants. This is by Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden, writing Matt Smith. Not to be confused with the Doctor Who Matt Smith or the Matt Smith from my creative writing class in 8th grade. It's not him. I know that's the one most people know.
Right. Matt, if you're listening, we're not talking about you. Sorry.
Matt, sorry. I'm really sorry that the Doctor Who also has your name now. That must be real fun. Chris O'Halloran on art, my main man from Ice Cream Man, and on colors. Sorry, and Clem Robbins on letters. I kind of really appreciate this book because Dark Horse isn't one of those studios where they're like, oh, I had this divine moment of inspiration and this whole idea for this book came to me in a dream. Like with Dark Horse, a lot of the time it feels like, hey, can we go back to the well that we've already gone back to maybe a few too many times? Like the well,
Sure.
There's nothing there. It's bone dry. And
Wow.
With Hellboy, The Bones of Giants, this book is a 2022 comic that is based on a 2001 novel, which was also by Mignola and Golden. And if you're thinking, there are Hellboy novels, that was me about a week ago.
Uh-huh. And me when you told me.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So you can call this idea uninspired, but when most people don't even know that these books exist and nobody has read them, maybe it's not the most wasted effort.
Sure. Sure.
So the initial conceit is pretty basic. Thor's hammer arrives on Earth. Hellboy discovers that he's not only capable of lifting it, but he's also become a part-time vessel for the God of Thunder. And the hammer won't leave his hand. So it's
Awesome.
like too much of a good thing. Like,
Wait,
it's not only like you are worthy, it's you are worthy, and now you've signed up for this.
So
Is
when
this-
he picks it up, does he pick it up with his red hand or does he pick it up with his not stone hand?
Oh,
Right.
fuck. I think it's the red hand. I'm sure someone is on a YouTube comment thread somewhere being like, what a fucking idiot. Red hand? What was he thinking?
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is this is the next Thor movie, and they're going to cross over, and Ron Perlman's going to show up in his prosthetics again.
Finally.
Yes.
Well, when you think about it, right? Like the novel was only like a year or two before Golden Army, which was sort of like elf related. Guys, I haven't seen the movie in a long time, okay?
It's okay.
So it is kind of interesting that there's sort of somewhat of a correlation there. Lore lovers will probably not be a huge fan of this because it is sort of approachable. It's largely standalone. The author of it basically came forward and said, like, yeah, the novel and comics might differ on plot, and the comic is now canon, apparently.
I see.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it. this is going to sound mean, but I enjoyed not having Dave Stewart on colors. And that's not because Dave Stewart is bad. Okay, it's not because Dave Stewart is bad. It's just that it is nice to see something different every once in a while.
Sure.
And I'm sure Dave probably thinks that being the colorist on a Mike Mignola book is sort of like Highlander. Like, there can only be one, and he's probably killed a couple other colorists in his time to keep that seat.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Chris O'Halloran, watch your back.
Sure.
But it was just nice to see something different. Halloran's color palette isn't vastly different from what we're used to seeing with Stewart, but it's a little bit brighter. It's a little bit lighter. And it's just nice to see things a little bit mixed up. So I appreciated that. I also read the Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters companion volume, which is a weird way of saying we made a bunch of tie-in issues for our event. We need a way to make more money. Here they are in a trade. But that's a long title for an issue.
Yeah. Well, not for Star Wars comics. I mean, if you really look at the...
This is probably the most credits I've read in forever, but so for writers, this is Justine Ireland on the Jabba issue, Daniel Jose Older on the Forlam and Zuckus issue, Alyssa Wong on the Bosch issue, Rodney Barnes on the IG-88 issue. For pencils, it's Ibrahim Robertson, Jabba Present Day, Luca Pizzari, Jabba Flashback, Kei Zama, Forlam and Zuckus, David Baldion for the Bosch, and Giu Villanova for the IG-88. Colors, it's Edgar Delgado on the Jabba Present Day, Giada Marchisio on the Jabba Flashback, Felipe Sobriero on the Forlam and Zuckus, Israel Silva on the Bosch, Antonio Fabella on the IG-88. Ariana Maher did the letters for all of these. Must be a superhuman. Have I read that many credits off for a trade in a while? No. Have I probably butchered more names in the last 30 seconds than I will in the next couple months? Absolutely. Was attempting to say, well, a lot of people worked on this book and leave it at that. Yes, it was. But give credit where credit is due, right?
Sure.
It doesn't help that there were a lot of names there that were probably wrong. But I tried, okay?
Uh-huh.
I'm shocked you didn't continue into editor-in-chief.
Right.
PR officer. VP of finance.
At the end, I'm going to read all of the credits for a Pixar movie. Honestly, I didn't not enjoy this volume.
What?
I know at one point
That's
I said...
a good pull quote. Yeah. Enjoy it. Yeah.
At one point I was like, did I enjoy War of the Bounty Hunters? I thought it was okay. As a standalone event, I will make this proclamation. If you read only the main event, you'll actually have an okay time.
Okay.
If you read the Star Wars companion volume, you will begin to wonder if Charles Soule wrote War of the Bounty Hunters, forgot what it was about, and basically wrote the same book again and then called it the Star Wars tie-in volume, because that's what it felt like. Remember when, like, with DVDs first showed up and they were like, oh, with DVDs, we're going to have these alternative ways where you can, like, view a scene from a different angle because we'll film it from different angles and you can switch perspectives. Yeah, this was the thing.
Wow.
And everyone was like, well, that would be cool, except I don't want that. Like, the Star Wars tie-in volume is that. It's the, oh, do you want to see it from this different angle? And it's like, that's a neat novelty, but I really don't. That's what the Star Wars tie-in volume is. Okay.
Well, this to me sounds like what every set of tie-ins are for an event.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Nick, I guess what I'm wondering is, what did you expect?
Honestly, what I do like about a couple of these one-shots is that they sort of kick off the ongoing tie-in. So the I think the Bosch one-shot is actually the kickoff for the Dr. Aphra tie-in, which is kind of clever. I think some of this stuff works, but not all of it.
Well, it sounds like it works if you're going to buy everything, and
that's just me being dumb. That's not a testament to anyone doing a good job. That's a testament to me doing a terrible job. with willpower and financial responsibility. Like that's
Well,
that's not a gold star on anyone's fridge. That's a demerit for me. That's,
Nick, I love Star Wars, but you are not selling this book to me, man.
No.
Well, don't make that the pull quote, because that's probably not gonna work.
Well, I just remember when the first issue of this bounty hunter event was happening, I saw that it had like over 20 variant covers, and instantly I was like,
of course.
But that like kind of turned me off it. I was like, oh, you're like trying too hard. And I know that's a stupid critique, but I'm like, if you're trying to make it a thing, is it really going to be a thing? Like, you can't make
Stop trying to make
viral.
War of the Bounty Hunters a thing. It's not a thing.
Right.
No, the TLDR would be this. Kara, read the main event. I think you'll have a good time with that. I haven't finished all the tie-ins, but surprisingly, the Bounty Hunters tie-in, yes, that is a book, just Bounty Hunters. Okay. The Bounty Hunters tie-in, which is Baylor Valance, which is basically, hey, what if the Terminator was in Star Wars, and Dengar are teamed up, and they hate each other and they fight, but also maybe they're bonding and learning about each other and learning to get along as a cyborg and his bandaged mummy-looking friend can only do. Surprisingly, I've enjoyed that volume a lot.
So this is the Star Wars version of Quantum and Woody.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Lord only knows I'm not reading that book anymore.
Oh no! All right. Before we start that fire with Valiant, Paul, how about you? How have you been? How have comic books been?
I've been doing well. Much like Nick said, here in West Michigan, the weather has been incredibly cold, very snowy. I've been staying warm inside my apartment pretty much as I can. So luckily, that gives me time to read a lot of comics, which is kind of what I've done. I was going to say I'm all caught up, but I didn't make it to the shop this past week, so I'm 1 week behind. But other than that, I'm doing a pretty good job staying on top of my weekly comics, my floppies. So I'm proud of that.
Nice.
So some stuff from the past couple weeks I read that I want to talk about. One is Department of Truth number 15. This is, again, written by James Tynion IV. Art on this issue is by David Romero and letters by Idika Bittaker. And I really like this series a lot. I want to preface that by saying I really enjoy the series. I think what James Tynion is doing is very interesting. I like this sort of one-off issues like this with a different artist. But this is one of those comics that is like largely text-based. It's almost entirely text, prose, with a few illustrations thrown in, some full-page illustrations. And this isn't the first time I've read a comic book like this. The thing is that they kind of take me out of the experience. Like, I really find myself wanting the sequential art of a comic. You know, as interesting as the story is, and as good as the artwork is, it's just not the same as reading an actual comic. You know what I mean? So, but this issue centers around an interview that someone is doing. It's the ufologist Dalton Hines, who was introduced a few issues ago. He's being interviewed by a mysterious person that we don't know in the Department of Truth. And they're talking about the Mothman prophecies, that conspiracy theory from the late 60s and 70s. And I noticed when I was reading this issue, maybe it was because I was being, my attention being distracted from the format of it, the prose format. But it happens a lot when I'm reading Department of Truth. I will stop reading the comic and do quote unquote research by just Googling the people that they're referencing. You know what I mean? I'll look up what conspiracy theory they're talking about to see, like, oh, this is actually a real thing. Like, oh, that person's actually real, and this is what they wrote about. So I find it a very engaging experience. I think this issue maybe benefited from that because I was able to kind of break up the prose by doing that. All in all, it's a great series, but it's like, this wasn't one of the stronger issues for me. And yes, thank you, Danny in the chat just said now I'm on the government's list. So
every month on a Wednesday, just the FBI sees Paul's search terms just get very like very like X-Files bullet points. Basically, he's at it again.
Yeah, someone's at the door. I'll be right back. I'll just
is it sort of like? I mean, I felt this way with like Martin Simmons' work as well. Which is like, it almost feels like reading when like Dave McKean does a comic, like the whole comic, and it just feels weird.
I mean, for the most part, that doesn't bother me so much as this issue. It is, you'll have a whole page that's basically all text. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The same issue with the Bigfoot two issues that they did, where it was a lot of writing. I agree. I wholeheartedly disagree that this takes me out of the book.
Okay.
If only or for me personally, right? If only because I got so sucked into the conspiracy mindset that it was like reading transcripts in the dark with a blanket over my head, tinfoil hat, inside the room that's got soundproofing. Like, I was sucked into this book, but I
Sure.
definitely could see that. Like, and I've also used that warning for people saying, if you're going to get into this series, it's really intriguing, but there are some moments that are not comic books. And
right. Yeah.
I totally agree with you there. It doesn't feel like a comic book. It feels like a mixed media piece about Mothman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is Simmons coming back? Because I'm not I'm through the first 2 arcs maybe, and I know that there's a couple rotational things here and there, or one-offs with other people. Is he supposed to be like the default artist, or was that just an introductory? Okay.
No, as far as I know, that's the case. Because every once in a while they do one of these basically a standalone issue. It's not focusing on the main story. It's like a different character, or it's like a companion piece almost to the main story.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
that's
like a fill-in.
Good. The Department of Truth is really weird, because I think that there, for the main story, Simmons is the person telling the story, so you'll get the chapter titles, which is why it's really weird to be chapter 7 and it's issue 9. You get that kind of weird.
No.
It 100%. It 100% is that. So in the Department of Truth, but I think like Elsa Chartier did that one issue, and then this issue is a one-off, and the 2 Bigfoot issues were a different artist, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, maybe Simmons did that. Either way, it feels like they're rotating in things to kind of tell these one-off stories that feed into the bigger narrative.
It's like world building one-off issues, basically. Yeah. It's still a good series. Again, I think it's a great series. One of my favorite comics. It's always on the top of my pile when I get back from the store. So, but yeah, I'm excited to get back to the main story, hopefully soon. The other comic I want to talk about briefly was That Texas Blood, number 13. It's another Image book. I really, really enjoy this book a lot. This is written by Chris Condon, art by Jacob Phillips, and colors by Pip Martin. Assisting colors on that. I like this book a lot because it walks a very thin line. If you've been following along, the last story arc had a lot of supernatural elements, not too far from Department of Truth, or if you watch the first season of True Detective, it got a lot of those vibes, And this issue is kind of like the epilogue issue. It's the end of that story. It kind of acts as a sort of cap to that last story arc. It's set in 1981. It's billed as a Christmas special, even though I think it came out last week or something anyway. So it's a Christmas party at the Ambrose County Sheriff's Department, and the head sheriff is telling a sort of ghost story about a previous sheriff who had passed away in the 50s under mysterious circumstances. And it's a standalone story. It's a good sort of ghost story you tell around the campfire. But what makes the book special to me, like every issue, is Jacob Phillips' artwork is fantastic. This is one of the best looking books on the shelves right now, I think. And what's great is on this issue, he does something interesting with the colors where, since most of the story is being told in a flashback, all of the flashbacks are done in monochrome. It's like black inks with orange colors and highlights. And it just looks so interesting and jumps off the page. It just makes it look different than the main story of the book, set in 1981. So the flashback stands out, looks different. It's a really, really beautiful way of using color to do a flashback. So if nothing else, maybe not the most exciting issue of the series, but it's worth checking out. Since it's a standalone story, you can just jump in at this point, and it's a beautiful looking book. I love the artwork. Jacob Phillips is absolutely tremendous on this book, especially his color work.
I've been really meaning to get into this. Nick, I know you've been telling me for a while to read this, but maybe I should. Now that volume 2 is out, maybe I can dig into this and get a nice meaty chunk.
For sure.
Yeah, I've been reading it in trade. I haven't read the second trade yet. What I really, really love about this book, and Paul got at it a little, is that there are these weird, just very small moments of supernatural or odd horror, and it's sort of a blink if you miss it panel. Paul, I think we talked about this before. There's the scene where the 2 cops are sitting around the bonfire in the woods or whatever, and there's a blink and you miss it panel of something off in the woods, and nobody discusses it, and it's never discussed again.
Right.
In that volume, and you're like, wait, what did I just see that? And you're like, I'm gonna keep tabs on this because this is weird.
Yeah.
So note to self, do not read that Texas Blood at night. Gotcha.
It's probably good. Probably good.
Okay.
I will say that the previous story arc, the Eversaw 81 story arc, it drags a bit. It might be one issue too long, but I think this issue kind of recentered me on the book and get me excited about the title again. So yeah,
Nice.
It's a very good book. I think if you're not reading it and you like true crime with a tinge of supernatural, this is going to be right up your alley.
Awesome. I'm now I've got to get on this. Yeah. On top of the millions of other books that I'm reading, I'll put this one into the queue. Kara, what about you? How have you been? How have comic books been?
I've been okay. I have been doing a lot of like in-person and online dance classes recently.
Ooh.
And right. So I am learning how much more improvement I can be doing. Like the other day I was doing an online class where they were like, now you can film yourself if you want and like post and tag us. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try filming myself. I'm feeling pretty good about this. And I was doing it and I was like, I am nailing this choreography. And I watched the playback and I was like, I am not nailing this choreography.
Oh no.
But it's like nice to have a more like spatial awareness of everything, since I'm not really going anywhere or doing anything. It's a way to like move my body through space. And I am learning also, like, dancers who have been dancing for a while make everything look so effortless because that's part of the job. But like there's this one move in one of the in-person dance classes that I'm doing where my instructor likes like bending forward. So think you're going down to touch your toes, but then one of your legs goes straight up in the air and you jump.
Oh.
And every time I see everyone else in the class execute this move more or less flawlessly, I'm like bending down, touching my toes, and hopping like 6 inches with both feet on the ground. And I feel so old.
Man.
Really...
See, but with enough practice and enough stretching and stuff, you too can do that.
I know, but when?
The impatience of old age, right?
Where do I sign up for the instant gratification dance class? Because that's where is it? Does it cost extra? That's okay.
I'm going to drag Tia on here, and she's going to talk about years of work and planning we have to do to be good at that stuff.
Sure.
Oh my god! So I've been comics-wise doing some classics over here. I watched the Hawkeye series on Disney Plus, and the whole time I was just like, man, I wish this was the comic book. So,
Did you sign up for Jeremy Renner's social media app, or?
I did not, Nick, actually. So I revisited Hawkeye by Matt Fraction and David Aja, and I have to say, reading it through like all at once, because previously I was reading it in singles when it was coming out, and I think reading it all together, I picked up more on the little through lines that were happening, or like there was a lot of like background stuff that ended up being foreshadowing for later issues that I didn't pick up on the first time. My enjoyment of the reread was also heightened by the fact that Mike made me read Iron Fist last year because was it David Aja also did the Iron Fist illustration?
He did Immortal Iron Fist with Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction, I think, were on writing for that.
Right. So my response to reading that is, Mike, this is Hawkeye, but different settings.
Yeah.
And he was like,
Fraction has a writing style.
No, yes. But like, okay, I mean, aesthetically, like Danny and Clint look the same in those two books. And I didn't realize it, but in the first few issues of the Hawkeye series, they make that joke multiple times. People just keep saying Iron Fist whenever Hawkeye shows up. And that's just not something I would have picked up on before. So that was nice. And then I also liked that in the interim between reading it first and doing the reread, I had seen Elsa Chartier's breakdown of one of the early Hawkeye pages on her YouTube channel. And I like Elsa Chartier's breakdowns because she's really, I think, clear in her explanation of why certain page layouts work and what the artist is doing visually to take you through the story that they're telling just with the images. And as someone who doesn't pay attention to art, that was really helpful for me. So when I got to that page, I was like, oh shit, it's the page and she's right. And it does the thing and my eye's going here. And I see like I'm following the fist as it's going through the air. Great. So I just felt like I got a deeper appreciation on the whole of that. And then for Christmas, I got a bunch of Donald Duck comics by Carl Barks from the Fantagraphics archive collection. And so I've just been reading a lot of Donald Duck because I'm so obsessed with the DuckTales reboot on Disney Plus. And it's really nice that they definitely did their homework, went back and read the original comics, and just kind of updated some of those storylines for the modern show. So,
very nice.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. That's the one that's got David Tennant in it, right?
He's so good.
Yeah.
It's like, and also, okay, this is me being slightly terrible, but this is how I feel, and I'm going to speak my truth. Lin-Manuel Miranda sounds like a nerdy duck, and he voices a nerdy duck in this show, so I think it's his best role. The character that he voices the first time it showed up, I was like, I know that voice. And when I saw the credits, I was like, oh, this is perfect because this is what you sound like.
This is you. This is what you sound like.
Right. This is your real. I don't know. It just felt like the truest distillation of what his voice sounds like, anyways. And I was just like, yes, be a nerdy duck scientist who wears a robot suit sometimes and saves the city and has a tough mom. Like, let's do this. So, but highly recommend the Donald Duck comics and the Scrooge comics because they're really well done all ages adventure stories. There's definitely some cringe moments where Carl Barks takes the ducks to non-white places.
Okay.
You know, but those are few and far between. Most of it's just like, we're prospecting in the Klondike and we're going to get actual construction equipment for Christmas because Scrooge doesn't understand the concept that children want to play with toys and not the real thing, you know? So it's like
sure.
wacky hijinks like that. So that's been my comics journey these past few weeks.
Fun. Well, for me, I have been obsessed with the song 3090 from the musical Tick Tick Boom. I watched that movie very recently, the Andrew Garfield movie that came out. That's all about Jonathan Larson, the guy who created Rent. And, say what you will about that movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The music is pretty good. Specifically, that 3090 song. It's just stuck in my head constantly. I think Andrew Garfield did a really good rendition of it, too. But yeah, so when I'm not listening to that song over and over, I think I mentioned this last week, but my last day at my job was this past week. So I'm taking a week off before I start a new job, which is very exciting. So I'm really pumped to read through the rest of Usagi Yojimbo and a whole bunch of other things that are on my forever list of things to read. Probably that Texas Blood as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
don't make promises you can't keep.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But in the meantime, I have been reading quite a bit of comics. I sat down and read Dirtbag Rapture number 2 and 3. This is by Chris Sabella with art by written by Chris Sabella, art by Kendall Good and Gab Contreras. I snagged number 1. I think it was on Comixology. Like, I think the whole series is on Comixology Unlimited for like borrowing, even though the issues keep coming out. So it's like a direct to CU thing, which is crazy. And it's essentially about our protagonist named Kat, who is a medium of some sort. Like she is able to communicate with ghosts, and ghosts come to her and ask to be taken places to finally rest. So someone dies in, say, a car crash on a highway, and she'll be riding in a bus, and then a ghost will be like, hey, can you take me with you? And then they'll like latch onto her head, and then she takes them to wherever they want. And she said, I guess the story starts with her saying, I used to do this for free, and now I try to get money out of these ghosts because they died, and what do they need it for? And that's like the whole person, her whole personality. She's like ghosts are really annoyingly persistent about her doing things. So like if they can latch onto her head, they will just bother her forever until she finally takes them to rest. So she's turned this into like a weird business where she's quit her job, and all she does is just take ghosts to where they want to rest and gets a little bit of money out of it somehow. But yeah, like, and if anything, like she gets enough money to buy pizza and maybe some quality weed and chill out with the cat that lives in her neighborhood. This character is amazing. Like she feels like the realest person you could ever read, and that she just is sick and tired of the bullshit that she has to deal with, and yet she has no choice. It feels very true to life for people who I think live in America, like where everything just can suck, even though the world isn't like falling apart, but like you just don't want to be bothered sometimes. She fully embraces that, and I really love it. Like the way that Chris Sabella writes this character is just fantastic. And so like the book feels super laid back. There's a lot of fantastical elements that just get downplayed constantly, like ghosts and why ghosts are attached to like Cat and why anything is really happening. When Cat's whole drive is just, I want to get high and eat pizza. Can everyone just leave me the fuck alone for 10 minutes? It's great. And I think that Kendall Good and Gab Contreras, who are on art, they do like a really good job of taking a really mundane world and making sure that it stays mundane despite some of the fantastical elements like ghosts and mediums and different things that are happening in the world. Just the juxtaposition of the occult like story pieces and someone like Cat just not giving a shit in a really like, God, I can relate to this kind of way, makes this comic stand out for me. And every issue has impressed me so far and how real Cat feels as a character. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's really fun and you have CU, or I think these issues like go down to like $2 each after a month. Dirtbag Rapture is really fun. Like the first 4 issues are out, and I've really enjoyed 1 through 3, and I'm really excited to read number 4. So yeah, I'd recommend that because it's just goofy. The other book that I read is a story called, or it's an OGN called Weeaboo. This is by Alyssa Sala, and the story is a little strange. Like the title alone kind of has a big question mark on it because weeaboo is a strange word, and the story is it's a little strange. But I'll just read the description that the site gives, or the publisher gave, which it's their senior year of high school and 3 friends are preparing for the big anime convention happening after graduation. Even though they've known each other for years, they're finding out that reality isn't like a cartoon and that people grow up and sometimes apart. This is a story about appropriation, identity, and what it means to change. I went into this book not knowing any of that. I didn't read the back cover. Someone just, some folks over at this Discord and podcast that we're kind of buddies with called Shonen Flop recommended this as part of their book club for February. And so I picked it up and started to read it, and it's really good. Like the opening part of the book is kind of cringy in the way that like it feels like someone it's their first ever comic, but the more you read it, the more you're like, oh shit, Alyssa Sala knows what the fuck she's doing in terms of writing a story that has a lot of nuance despite it being super awkward. And the cringiness and the awkwardness of the story is actually coming from the characters and not from the story itself. Like the first chapters of this book is really on the nose as we get to establish all of these characters, and there's this kind of like each of the characters are introduced in like a Power Rangers style montage where you get a little bit of descriptor about who they are, and they all have different quote unquote superpowers. And it's really corny, but once you realize that that's from the perspective of the one of the girls or one of the characters in the story who is very much obsessed with like Japanese culture and is what you would quote unquote call a weeaboo, it's in like a derogatory way. Like it all starts to come together at the end as you realize that there is a lot more going on in the story than just a story about 3 friends making it through high school. It really hits on the way that people appropriate culture and the way that people interpret race. And I was so surprised by the nuance of this book. And again, it's very on the nose in some ways, but in a way that is helpful to drive the story. And it ultimately becomes a story about how, despite some of the turmoils we may have as we grow up and learn and understand things, people can still be friends, and sometimes we can't, and that is okay. It's just coming to terms with all that. So for a quick little, or for an original graphic novel, like this one really, really worked. I would highly recommend it. It's called Weeaboo by Alyssa Sala. Yeah, I don't know. It's really cool. Like, again, the art will maybe throw you, but I think overall it's worth reading from end to end.
Sounds interesting, Mike. I'll check it out.
If you're looking for something that's really going to mess you up on the inside, it's my favorite kind of comic.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyways, let's talk about comic books that we're excited to read. Let's talk about comics that are on the top of our pile. I guess to get things started here, let's start with Paul. What are you reading next? What's on the top of your pile?
Well, I've been, for reasons that might be explained later, I've been on a huge Batman kick lately. I've been reading a ton of Batman stuff. I'm enjoying the current Batman series and Detective Comics quite a bit. I'm very excited to read the Batman Catwoman special #1 that's coming out this week. This is, of course, a tie-in to the Batman Catwoman series that Tom King is writing. So it's written by Tom King, obviously, with art by John Paul Leon. I think it's probably the last book of his that's going to be published, sadly, as additional art from Bernard Chan, Sean Crystal, Mitch Gerrits, and colors by Dave Stewart. Yeah, so initially this book was supposed to be an oversized sort of book that focuses on Selena Kyle, her entry into the world of crime, and then it's going to tie in her relationship to Batman throughout her entire life. But in the wake of John Paul Leon's passing, I believe that they expanded to an 80-page issue, and they're going to have other artists do like pinups as a sort of tribute to John Paul Leon. So on one hand, it's a tie into a book I'm enjoying. On the other hand, it's almost like a tribute issue to one of the greatest artists working in contemporary comics. I think if you're not familiar with John Paul Leon's artwork, he's incredible. And he's one of those artists that is probably your favorite artist's favorite artist. You know, a guy whose work it was so unique and visually interesting and distinct. So the fact that he passed away last year from cancer is incredibly sad, but this will be looks like it's going to be a nice little tribute to him. So maybe if you're not even reading this series, it might be worth checking out, flipping through to see what it looks like. I'm sure it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I didn't realize that this was even coming out. So maybe I'll snag this. And I don't even read these dumb DC comic books.
Watch your mouth,
JK.
Mike.
JK. I know. JK.
Friends left and right.
I know. Listen, here, my goal with this next year of IRCB is to just make as many people as mad as possible.
Yeah. New year, same Mike.
Thank you. Kara, what about you? What's on the top of your pile?
I'm concerned with one book and one book only, and it's She-Hulk by Charles Soule and Javier Pulido, because I can't stop thinking about it. It was like when I was reading the Hawkeye stuff, I just kind of flashed back to all the things that Marvel was publishing around that same time, and most of it was great. And now I look at their current lineups and I'm like, guys, I don't know. I felt like at that point they were making a real effort to be accessible to new readers while also having fun Easter eggs for existing readers. And they were doing lots of stories that weren't necessarily reliant on lots of previous continuity. So She-Hulk, I felt, was a really good entry point for like some characters that I wasn't as familiar with in the Marvel universe. Javier Pulido's art style is really just it just leaps out the page at you because the colors are so like, it's like the line work, the colors, like everything about this book is so just like friendly looking. Like you just want to keep reading it because you're just like, this is pleasant. I would love to keep hanging out at She-Hulk's law offices. This is fine.
Yeah.
Did I start reading this book because I wanted to know more about She-Hulk because I read the young adult novel, The She-Hulk Diaries? Yes. But you know what? It got me here. And, you know, we can only hope that the new She-Hulk TV series is going to be even half as good as this comic book run. Because this is just, when I think of She-Hulk, I think of these comic books, and Charles Soule is a lawyer and She-Hulk is a lawyer. So I felt like there was that extra level of, you know, write what you know. And you can, it just felt easy to read because it was clearly like Charles Soule dashed this off on his like lunch break or something, and it was still amazing.
Kara, I have to tell you, I also love this series quite a bit. It's one of the reasons She-Hulk is one of my favorite Marvel characters. And I have to say, I also read the She-Hulk Diaries and absolutely adored it. So
yes, good for you,
I love that book. It's so good. Yeah, it was so great.
Well, I mean, I just, you know, I never was into this book when it came out, but I do think it deserves a reread because I know that people like praised it and stuff. And I know like I canceled early. It's probably my fault. My vote, my purchase of this book may have, you know, pushed it over the edge to be saved. So
we just need one more reader, please.
Right. That's what Marvel was saying. I heard him in the offices up the street from when I worked at Comixology. So sorry, guys. But man, I've heard good things about this run, and Javier Pulido's art grows on me the more I see it. So maybe I'll check this out as well. Nick, what about you? What are you reading next? What are you excited for?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely Ice Cream Man 28 coming out on Wednesday. Writing by W. Maxwell Prince, art by Martin Morazzo, as to be expected. It's titled The Etymologist Rises. The preview summary being the term comic book is an etymologically confusing one, as they, the comics are most often not humorous, nor are they, in the traditional sense, books. So I think this, much like every issue of Ice Cream Man, not all, but some seem to have a sort of conceit or a theme. Like one was all about the structure of an advent calendar, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the cover page I've seen for this, it looks like it's going to riff on sort of a dictionary, like the dictionary layout and structure and sort of how it structures entries. So I know that sounds real exciting to some of you, but it sounds really cool to me.
It sounds great to me. I can't wait to cover this in 2024 when we finally get to volume 7 or 8 of Ice Cream Man.
we did 3 Ice Cream Man minisodes this year. I just want to point that out. So I think we are like, the idea of us getting current is not outlandish.
Well, I'm excited. Either way. I mean, the thing is, W. Maxwell Prince is going to find a way to make, I'm going to try to say this, I can't even say the word. He's going to make that word very interesting. I'm just going to say that. I have a feeling. And it's going to somehow twist my brain. And, you know, that's the thing that I love about Ice Cream Man. Before we're going to move on. Before I try to say that word one more time, just out of spite. Anyways, before I get into my pick for this week, or what I'm excited for, some folks hanging out in the Discord with us, their picks this week. Danny is excited for Superman and Robin #1. Is that a book that's actually coming out? That was the surprising part. Does anyone know? Can we confirm that? Superman and Robin #1? Okay. Hugh is excited for X-Men #7. Matt and Aaron and I are excited for Saga #55. I'm very excited for this book. Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples. I mean, come on, how do I not pick this? It's
very
back,
easily.
baby.
You know what happened in the last issue. You could very easily not pick this up and protest.
This is true.
When did that come out? It's like 4 years ago or something.
Definitely pre-pandemic.
I can barely remember
6.
last
I think
month.
it's 6 years
ago. It was easily a decade ago. I think the last issue came out.
So is this a good jumping on point? Is what
I have a feeling that it is the worst jumping on point of any comic that's ever been written.
Oh darn! Okay, I guess I'll pass.
Well, and here's the thing.
Maybe
all right, guys,
this is its own project, Paul. For this year, it'll be a Patreon exclusive series. We're gonna have you read the second half of Saga without ever going back and reading the first.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I made it through the first 30 issues. So yeah, I've forgotten most of what happens with that stuff.
Perfect.
So yeah, it'd be basically like a clean slate. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So I mean, obviously, I'm excited for Saga. Here is the thing that is killing me. Right, Image in their wonderful, beautiful world has decided, yeah, this is going to be the only $2.99 book on the shelf. Because I was wondering, are there actually any other books that are being sold on the shelf for $2.99 at this point? I think if it is, it's only like top tier, like we're going to sell 1 billion copies of this issue, so it doesn't matter whatever issue. Saga is that one for Image. I don't know if there's any others. Maybe Savage Dragon, maybe Spawn. Yeah, Hughes in the chat says Spawn. Here's the thing that is killing me. That's fine. $2.99. Obviously, we should draw the line at $2.99. Somebody said that at one point, I think.
That was DC's famous
I know.
promise they broke twice. Yes.
Promise that they've broken so many times.
Yeah.
That's not the point here. What I'm getting at is that Image has the fucking audacity to put this in the solicit for Saga 55. As a thanks for fans' endless patience, the Saga team is proud to return with a double-length issue, 44 pages for the regular $2.99 price point. And here's the kicker. Yeah. Without variant covers or gimmicky renumbering.
God, could you pat yourself on the back any harder than that? Like,
I want to throw the entire internet in the trash right now. Because if Image is trying to say, look how much better we are than every other publisher, they wouldn't let one of their fucking founders get into NFTs with Steve Aoki. Okay?
Don't forget all the union issues they had earlier.
Oh, yeah. The union issues that we're talking about. We wouldn't talk about the fucking stupidity of them saying, yeah, we're not going to do second prints for any books, so people just got to get fucked until the trade comes out. They are creating this scarcity market. Guys, I'm so mad at Image Comics right now because how dare they think that they're being so clever with their hot book. I just want to just scream.
You're mad at Image. Sure. Nick's mad at Valiant. We're always all mad at DC and Marvel. It's just like, you're going to be mad. We're all just mad. We're
not all perfect like Vault. That's
that's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry.
Listen, yeah, exactly. Like, I'm mad at this. It's just, I just think that I can't believe they have the audacity to act like they're so much better than Marvel and DC, and they're doing the same stupid shit. They just happen to give creators a little bit more money and do no marketing for them and don't help them in any other way other than publishing their book. As a publisher, so whatever. Anyways,
I'll say you really feel Mike. Damn. Mike left the industry anyway, and he's coming for it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's all I got to say. I'm excited for Saga 55, despite all of that. I'm gonna read it. Like, guys, if you get us to like $4,000 a month, I'll give you weekly rants about yeah. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the last year of I Read Comic Books and what an amazing time that it's been despite the awful things that are the world. So we'll be back in just a minute.
Hi, this is Clay from the Next Issue Podcast.
Hi, this is Kyle from the Next Issue Podcast.
Hi, this is Josh from the Next Issue Podcast.
And this is Daniel from the Next Issue Podcast. And we want to congratulate our friends over at I Read Comic Books Podcast on their 7th annual. And remember, comics are good.
And so are you.
This week on I Read Comic Books, we are mostly just talking about ourselves. This is the narcissist episode of IRCB. It's our 7th annual episode. It's the celebration of the 7th year of I Read Comic Books to come. I'm very excited because the last year of IRCB has been pretty wild and super successful. And overall, just I feel really good about the show. I don't know what we did this past year, but it seems like we've built a really strong community beyond what was already there, and it's only gotten tighter and more interesting and exciting for everyone. I think like being more prominent and using our Discord and like just the overall vibe of everything has been really great. And I obviously, we on the show, we want to encourage that and we really love it, but like the show has grown, and it's, the people on our Discord and the people online who chat with us and stuff have really made this a super welcoming and exciting place to talk about comics and all sorts of stuff. Like I doubly want to shout out the Discord because I feel like we've got a really cool group of folks that hang out on there and just chat. And I know some folks are more active than others, but man, it's such a welcoming place that I just want to hang out with. I just want to hang out at all the time because I can't go anywhere. So like, I don't know how else to describe it than that, but it's made for a really nice, comfortable place to just chat with people.
Such a warm, welcoming place. Everything else is on fire, so of course, by default, it's a much more attractive option. Yes,
sure. A few months ago, I think Nick, you told me you were just like, if you want to interact with humans, you could go on our Discord.
Yeah.
And then I didn't until like yesterday, and I went on there and I was like, "Oh right, Nick is right. I could have been interacting with humans this whole time."
Don't say that phrase. That gives power that I just that shouldn't have.
But I don't want to sell it short, obviously. Like I'm saying these things because this is all that we do. Is we're from the Midwest and all we do is self-deprecate on ourselves. But like,
speak for yourself, Michigander.
No. This is just me and Nick. I know this for a fact. But it's quite honestly like such a fun place to be. Like, I don't know. The Discord really is something that I check all the time when I'm on my phone, on my computer. Like, it's a really nice place to be, and it's full of people that I just like to talk about stuff with. It's not just comic stuff, it's everything. And I feel like we've built a really cool place on the internet for folks. And I've heard this from other people on the Discord, either via our listener survey, which I want to talk about, or just in general. Like, it feels like we built a really nice community, and I'm super thankful for that, because starting this show has always been a battle for me in terms of, I always said to my friends, I don't want to talk to anybody about comic books, because talking to people about comic books got really angry really fast, Mm-hmm. And I started this show to talk comics with folks that I trusted and that I liked, and as we've grown the show to add more people to the place that we are right now, like, I didn't really think there was going to be more than that. And now here we have this Discord that is just full of really wonderful people to talk about comics and other things with. And I really appreciate that, because I know that sometimes, especially in comics, especially in nerdy spaces, there is a lot of unwelcoming gatekeeping bullshit. And I don't feel any of that in our Discord. And I really want to shout that out, because it's a wonderful place to actually have those conversations and be critical and not feel like someone's going to get in your face for hating something or not liking something, and vice versa for liking something or really loving something. So I don't know. I just want to make sure that it's said, because quite honestly, it's a fantastic place.
I agree, Mike. I agree. I have to say, I was a little hesitant to join the Discord initially just because I'm not a big fan of like chat groups or chat rooms, but I really enjoy the community there. It's like you said, it's a very welcoming, positive discussion about comics, and not just comics. You know, I feel like we talk about everything on there, and it's nice to have a group of friends that, yeah, you can be critical and you can say things, but you know, your opinion is going to be respected and not dismissed out of hand. And it's a very civilized place to have conversations, which feels incredibly rare these days. So yes, I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, that's, you know, that was the first thing I wanted to say, because I feel like that has really solidified a lot of what I think 2021 was for me, was obviously being more online, just because there's not a lot to, it's not safe to go outside and be out in groups and crowds and stuff. And as much as my heart yearns for the next, you know, dozen comic conventions that I can go to in the future, like it's nice to have at least a place to go and do a lot of the things that I would do at a con, you know, online at home, even though there is a little bit of a difference to that. But regardless, like, it's still like a comfortable place where I get to meet up with friends and chat with them. Like, we did a huge hangout last night for like 3 hours, and it was like bumping until like 11 p.m. And I was like, I have to go to bed at some point, so I need to get offline, you know. But it was amazing. Like, I don't know, it's just a fantastic place. I'm gonna shut up now, but yeah.
No, I think it's a good point, because I know for me, sometimes reading comics or watching movies, that's something I did a lot of the past 2 years, just because, again, stuck at home a lot, but they can be very sort of solitary things. So having a venue like a podcast like this to share your thoughts, and even on a lower level, like a Discord group, to like share your thoughts with like-minded people, it makes it feel less solitary and lonely to do the things I enjoy. So it's made it more rewarding in a lot of ways. So speaking of which, can we talk about the RCB Movie Club? I want to, again, thank Mike and Brian and Kara, who was on this past year, for pitching in with that. It was a fun little idea I had, and I'm glad it's been successful. And I think we're going to keep doing it this year. People seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see where we go, because I feel like we've hit a lot of like at least semi-big things, you know, like we did a documentary, we did a Spider-Man movie, we did Josie and the Pussycats, and that was like on a forever list of we got to do this.
Sure.
But like, I feel like there's a lot of places that we can go with this, and we've been, you, Paul, in particular, have been really explicitly choosy with the movies that we go with, but in the best way, right? Like, we're never just going to go, all right, let's get through all the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, we could have done that, but I like that we're bouncing around and we're forcing ourselves to watch and read very different things, like every time we have an episode.
Yeah, I think that definitely was the goal when I did it. I'm old enough to remember when there were no comic book movies or superhero based films. So the fact there's one every 3 weeks is like disorienting. But I wanted to step back and focus on movies that maybe weren't as well known, or maybe adapted from less well known material. Maybe movies you didn't even realize were comic book adaptations. That being said, this is my guarantee for 2022 on the RCB Movie Club on our Patreon. We will be watching and discussing American Splendor. It's got to happen. That was one of my goals from doing this podcast, was to make Mike and Brian watch that movie. So it's going to happen. That's my guarantee.
I think here's the thing. We also have to make an effort to put Dredd back in the listing at some point.
Of course. Yeah.
I just want to say that I think that we've got to do that, whether it's the Sly Stallone movie or it's the Carl Urban movie. We got to put Dredd back in the list in some capacity. Yes. Maybe this year, we'll see. I'm just saying, I think we owe it to the people who have been clamoring, particularly Danny in our chat, to bring Dredd back at least as a runner-up. Maybe we should think about a runners-up bracket. I mean, I'll leave it to you. Yeah, but I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Yeah, so I guess what I'll say, if you've not checked it out yet, if you're not a Patreon or you're not a patron on Patreon, that's where we've been doing this movie club podcast. We do one like 4 times a year, which has been the perfect amount of time to get it set up and do all that. People get to vote on what movies we watch. And every time I put American Splendor on the poll, it never wins. So I guess I'm going to have to stop the steal and demand a recount one of these days. So,
oh no,
democracy is overrated for Paul, and it's just going to be a little authoritarian for.
Look, we're talking about Judge Dredd, and to quote Joseph Dredd himself, "Democracy's not for the people." So,
oh man.
Yeah, but I would love to do both Dredd movies. Maybe we'll have to do a double feature at one point, but that's been one of my favorite things the past year, to keep that series going. And again, I do want to specifically thank Kara for coming to talk about Josie and the Pussycats, one of my favorite movies. And then it was clearly one of yours as well. So I'm glad we got to talk about it here on the show.
That movie lives in my head rent free.
Of course, yeah.
I'm so happy that we did that episode, because it happened to line up when the Super Yaki Shop was doing a sale on Josie and the Pussycats like anniversary stuff.
Correct,
and I bought a du jour t-shirt.
Yes,
it's one of my most prized possessions. Every time I wear that shirt, like, people have seen me on camera for work and they're like, is that from Josie and the Pussycats? And I'm like, you fucking know it is. And I turn around and it's got on the back. Oh my gosh,
great.
It's a prized t-shirt in my collection.
That shirt is great.
Du jour means friendship.
It does. Speaking of Patreon stuff, Kara, I want you to tell us a little bit about Giant Days of Our Lives, which is another big Patreon series that we did this past year. It was a huge endeavor, and the amount of notes, like the 40 or 50 page document that you, Brian, and Kate had for that. Tell us about this show, and like, what did you think of it? Are you trying to still sell it on people? How many t-shirts do you own? All that kind of stuff.
First of all, the t-shirt that I have is my favorite t-shirt. It's like, not to upsell our merch, but it's a really comfy
t-shirt. This is the episode to do that.
It's a really comfy t-shirt, you guys. I got it in mauve, and what I like about the cover art for the Giant Days of Our Lives series is that Brian and Kate and I decided to like use our college aesthetic. So like we all sent in pictures of ourselves wearing what we would have worn in college. And when I sent out the art to like friends and family to say like, look, this drawing is me, they were like, what are you talking about? You don't look like that. You don't dress like that. I was like, I did 10 years ago. And all I did was wear sweatpants, Uggs, and an anorak everywhere I went. Get out. But yeah, we really liked doing the whole revisiting the whole college dynamic friendship stuff. Giant Days is one of our favorite comic book series. So getting to read through it with Brian and Kate was really lovely for me, because they're both really thorough readers in different ways. So Mike was saying, oh, there's so many notes. I'm like, yeah. because we all have different perspectives and we're very prolific, and Kate did all these lovely summaries of all the issues, so that even if you didn't have access to the comics or weren't really interested but just loved hearing our voices, that you could just go in and kind of pay attention to what's going on. And of course the challenge of having a podcast about comic books is that it's a purely audio medium talking about a purely visual medium. So how do we best present that to listeners? So that was a really lovely project. But yeah, when it was on this list, I was like, that wasn't last year. That was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that show was really cool. I really enjoyed the Spotify playlist that Brian put together. I thought that was really fun. And like all of the pairings that you did with each of the volumes, I thought was really cool. And yeah, I don't know, it's just a really fun show overall. I'm really glad that we did it, and I am very excited for the next big series that we're going to do, but we'll talk about that later. We're saving that for the end of the show. The one other thing I wanted to do for this episode, I was going through all of our downloads. We've done pretty well for this past year in terms of downloads and stuff. Like, we're no, I don't know, serial podcast or whatever, but you know, we've done well. But I did go through like the geographical location of like everything that we've had downloaded, and I just want to shout out to the people across the world who are not in the United States listening to the show, particularly those in no order here. Australia, Poland, Malaysia, Britain, Ireland, Northern Ireland, I don't know why those are segregated or set up differently. Nigeria, Algeria, Canada, Norway, Germany, France, South Africa, India, South Korea, and to the one person who downloaded an episode in China, hello.
Mike.
Yeah, I'm just excited that folks are listening to our show, and we somehow broke through the Great Firewall of China. I'm guessing, but
Mike, Ireland and Northern Ireland are two different countries. That's why they're separate.
Yeah. Sorry. When I said why did they break, I meant like Britain and Northern Ireland. I got those two Democrat, like because
Mike, you're starting to walk on some real.
Wait. United Kingdom is not the same. I'm sorry.
Oh boy!
Anyways,
I can tell you where we won't have any listeners from for 2022.
Oh, I'm in trouble now with some people over across the pond. But anyways, yeah, I'm excited. Like I know that we have listeners who are not in the United States, but it's really interesting to see folks from particularly from non-English speaking countries downloading our show, because I can't imagine people who speak English understanding me and the speed at which I speak, let alone someone who maybe doesn't speak English as their first language. But who knows? Maybe that's the challenge. Can you listen to this idiot speak as fast as he possibly can into a microphone? But yeah, it's really cool to see that folks are listening to their show across the world. So hello to all of you fantastic people. And yeah, that's cool. Speaking of other, folks listening to the show, I do also want to shout out some of our listener surveys, giveaway winners. We got a bunch of people who gave us some answers to our huge survey that we did. Thank you to everyone who provided information. It's going to be super helpful in us figuring out what we're going to do for the next year, because we got some really interesting feedback that I had never considered before. So I'm really excited to take that to the rest of the group and figure out how we can devise ways to basically make the show better for those of you who filled out the survey, because that's how you get data. And if you didn't fill out the survey, I'm sorry, but you had your chance. So
you just yell at Mike in the Discord.
Yeah, hit me up on the Discord and tell me what you like about the show, but or what you want to see us do in the future. Because that was like one of the big things is we got some feedback of people saying it'd be really cool if you did this and this and this. And multiple people gave me this extremely unique thing that I was like, I would have never considered that for this show. So
was it end the show?
Nick!
I wasn't going to spoil it, but yes.
All right, last stop. Here we go.
Anyways, I want to say thank you to the winners, Hannah, Simon, Tom, Ben, and Kay. All 5 of you are going to be getting gift cards. I'll be reaching out to you after this episode is out and hopefully getting you some gift cards for you to buy some comic books. So I'm very, very excited. Either at your local comic book shop or at Midtown or Comixology, whatever you prefer. So look for those emails coming from me very, very soon. But yeah, I guess what else happened this year you guys want to talk about? I'm just interrupting nonstop. So what were you guys thinking about for today when you're thinking about the last year of I Read Comic Books?
I mean, we have to mention we hit 300 episodes, which I mean is it's an arbitrary number, obviously. I mean, this is year 7 that we're going into, so that's impressive. But I think 300 was a nice episode, is a nice way to pat ourselves on the back. Much like we're doing today. Any excuse to do it, I guess. But I thought that was really fun. It was nice to kind of tell my friends and family who maybe know vaguely that I do a podcast to say like, yeah, I've been doing it for 300 episodes and it's still going strong. So it was a nice time to reflect back on the history of the show. And I really enjoyed that episode. So yeah, we should mention that for sure.
Oh yeah, 100% agree.
I appreciated that we got our holidays wrong and ended up doing a Best Moms in Comics episode on Father's Day.
Yes.
That was perfect.
I mean, yeah, we did. I think we did a Best Fathers in Comics first, and then we did a Best Mothers in Comics in like as a reflection, because I don't know how to time anything. Holidays don't actually show up on my calendar for some reason, so I wasn't even thinking, but it was fun. I mean, but in the 300th episode was seriously solid, because it's like we've done more than 300 episodes. I think I said that on that episode.
Yeah.
But the fact that we actually got to that number, I don't think a lot of podcasts can say that. And then a lot of podcasts don't even number their show because apparently that's bad for SEO or something like that. But I don't care. I don't care. I think it's an achievement. We've done so many episodes. And I think what I'm probably going to do shortly, probably after this episode today, is I'm going to take all the episodes that are no longer like available on iTunes and Spotify and stuff, and I'm going to put them up in a folder for folks that want to listen to them either I don't know if you're interested in this, I could put up a second feed of the archive of IRCB. Alternatively, I might just put them up on Dropbox folder for Patreon folks, so that anyone who wants to access them can just check them out there. It doesn't go into your podcast feed thing, but if folks are really interested, send me an email, ircbpodcast@gmail.com. We can figure something out, because there have been multiple complaints or questions about where people can listen to those early episodes. Part of me wants to say they're gone and you can never find them because some of them aren't good, but for folks that are interested, I can definitely make them available. Just let me know.
I'm sure there's completists out there. Yeah,
they want that rare Xander sighting.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That should be a goal for this year, that we get an episode like an April Fool's Day or something crazy, where we do like a bizarro world where it's like Xander's on the show, Kelly's on the show, and like I don't even know, like we'll bring back somebody who hasn't been on the show in like 5 years and have them that'll be the episode. Could be wild.
I only will talk about X-Men comics. It'll be weird.
Oh my gosh,
Earth 2.
Oh man, I said okay. I don't think I ever said this. And I know we've got other things to get to, but this is whatever. This episode's crazy. For the 300th episode, Xander, I'm going to tell everybody all of the plans that you and I had came up with and decided that it was far too much effort. So for the 300th episode, Xander and I were talking about I might have already said this to people on like a hangout or something, but we were talking about doing like an alternate universe, or maybe I already said this on the show, but we were going to do like an alternate universe where we had pre-recorded things, and I was going to work with you, Paul, and we were going to act like there was an alternate universe that had somehow fed into the IRCB feed where, Paul, you were the host implied for 300 episodes, and on the 300th episode you were handing it over to me, so I would continue to run the show as normal, but it'd be like, man, I haven't done this before, so I guess I don't know how to host the show. And yeah, it was going to be like this bizarro world where I was trying to communicate with the mic of this universe that we live in via the computer known as Xander. It was
wow.
It was really out there. We had a big idea. Wow. We decided it was way too much work.
Oh my God.
That's a lot of work, but I'm just going to throw this out there. If there's anyone out there who wants to do IRCB fanfic, there's a great premise for you. So
no.
That is not a can of worms you want to open up.
Yeah.
I don't know what fan fiction is, apparently.
It's going to quickly turn into
Should I just Google it?
fic.
Should I just Google fan fiction?
Just you should search /fic, and
Okay,
that'll
perfect.
get you right into where we shouldn't be. Nick, you put together a list of stuff this last year of notable events. What were some of the things that you were excited about or wanted to talk about today?
I mean, in terms of dangerous wish fulfillment, getting to actually record an Aliens episode, like I was waiting, like I was checking my calendar to make sure we weren't like filming on April 1st or something, and then you were going to be like, psych, and then we aren't going to actually do this. Mm-hmm. So getting to record that episode with you and Brian, and I had been whining and complaining about the new Alien series at Marvel for like half a year. Whenever I'd bring it up, Brian would be like, this is okay, and be like, no, it's not okay, Brian. Like, it's not fine. I appreciate that you have an opinion. I don't want to hear it anymore, but that's great that you have one. And so basically just being able to like sit you down and make you read this book and be like, I want a third opinion on this fucking book, was like my life goal for at least a couple months there. So 2021, everyone. And so getting to read that, and then I think we also read Dead Orbit, and I think we also read the one shot that led in. Oh, that's right, we led the one shot that sort of fed out of the film Aliens, and of course you watched Aliens in preparation for that, so it was a whole theme for a while there, and that was a lot of fun, I think.
That is your one gift for this decade. I'll get you in another 5 years,
and I'll have another movie ready for you to watch. I hope you've watched the first Grown Ups movie, because we will be definitely you're gonna need to be versed in the lore before we watch the second one.
Oh, brother.
Of course, yeah.
From here on, it's just Kevin James all the way down.
I wouldn't be surprised if Titan Comics published a Grown Ups comic book, so that's fine.
They'll do any TV movie franchise. They're like, we'll do it.
I'm gonna steal from your list here and
Sure.
give a shout out to our Candy Bar Antler Boy series that Danny and I did, and it was a thing that I decided to do on a whim, and it was very exciting because I love Sweet Tooth to death, and so Danny and I did a whole big discussion about Candy Bar Antler Boy, Sweet Tooth, and we called it Candy Bar Antler Boy, and we got like custom art made and stuff. It was really cool. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. That was like a really fun like live to tape type of thing, very little editing, where I just like put music on both ends of the audio and just kind of dropped it into the feed. I don't know if anybody listened to it, but it definitely came out, and I was excited to do it because I was just happy to talk to someone about Sweet Tooth, and Danny and I were both, I think, pretty hyped about it, which was really nice. Yeah, and according to Danny, it is the #1 unofficial Sweet Tooth podcast, which I totally agree with. And I'm gonna start spamming it to Jeff Lemire as the next season ramps up. Try to get an official deal with Netflix or something. But
I like Nick's note that a highlight of the year was just talking about Gambit for an entire episode.
Yeah.
Which episode? We've done multiple.
What was that? Yeah. Narrow it down.
I think
this was the first one that was intended to be a Gambit episode end to end, and not one that just ended up being a Gambit episode from end to end.
The secret's out. I read comic books is actually I read comic books about Gambit.
Right. Have you guys haven't noticed the little tiny font in parentheses underneath the logo?
Oh God.
Well, speaking of making each other read comics, I'm really glad that I forced you, Mike, to read Final Crisis this past year.
Yeah.
And I got to talk about Grant Morrison with Kara, which is one of my favorite things to do, Kara, talk about Grant Morrison with you. So, yeah.
Only you, Paul. Yeah. Only for you.
I know.
Will I subject myself to more of it just scarred me so much that having to go back to it, I was like, no, this is still trash, but I'm having a thoughtful discussion about it and why it's still trash.
It's always fun to talk about it. Yeah, even though we wildly disagree. And again, maybe that speaks to something we were talking about earlier, the idea of a place where we can have a respectful discussion and disagreement without it being personal. It's just like, hey, we have different tastes and we can kind of talk about that in a civilized manner.
Yeah.
On that note, sorry, go ahead, Kara.
No, I was just going to say, for Grant Morrison, the thing that I find so interesting about talking about this creator in particular with Paul is that the things that I don't like and he likes and vice versa are always like the same thing. So recording those shows,
just the other side of the coin.
It really does feel like another side of the coin thing. So even though I am just mad every time I read a Grant Morrison book, I'm like, you know what? I'm sure Paul's enjoying this in equal proportion.
Exactly.
Not every book has to be for me, and that's fine. I'm still going to be mad about it, though.
I thought that was a very, very fun discussion. The idea of making Mike read that book cold delighted me. So, at least
no wonder he doesn't like DC. Paul.
Right, exactly.
Just Final Crisis.
What's the worst jumping on point? Yeah, there we go.
I mean, I'm all for that this next year. If folks want to just throw like comics at me cold without any prep, I'm 100% on board for that.
Speaking of having people read other books, I have an announcement for Paul on a promise that is long being kept.
Yes,
okay. IRCB exclusive. I think it was maybe even a year and a half ago. I made the ultimate wager with Paul, and I don't even know if he remembers this anymore.
I know what you're talking about. And I was just wondering about it. So yes.
Yeah. I told him that if he watched Joe Pera, that I would read 2 Hernandez brother graphic novels of his choosing, and I bought a bunch of them in that Comixology sale. And I have the one about hoppers, and I've started Maggie the Mechanic, and I'm very pleasantly surprised to find out that it's actually somewhat sci-fi, and I did not expect that at all.
Oh,
yes. Man. Yes.
There's like hover bikes on page 1, and I was immediately like, this can't be what Paul recommended. There's gotta be a mistake
Nick
here.
Reed's Love and Rockets. I think that's a new series that I can't wait to listen to this year.
I'm not so sure it's one Paul can't wait to listen to. No, I'm like 20 pages in so far. I'm enjoying the fact that it is not at all really what I anticipated.
Sure.
I'm very surprised. I thought, after having read The other one, I thought it was going to be much more slice of life, somewhat like the superhero.
Oh, the Return of the Thai Girls,
right? Which was like half slice of life, half like reflection on superhero tropes, kind of. At least for me, was my interpretation. So I thought this was going to be more wholly slice of life, and then it's like, oh, check out, I fix hover bikes, and I'm like, what?
Oh boy.
So.
Nick, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm glad you remembered the bargain. So yeah, that means a lot to me. I appreciate that. I don't want to get too far off tangent here, but regular listeners to the show know that I dearly, dearly love Love and Rockets, particularly the Jaime Hernandez Maggie-based stories, which is what Nick is reading. And it's one of those books that I always have trouble describing or explaining, so I'm always hesitant to recommend it. I think the best way to do it is just jump right in at the beginning and kind of swim your way to shore, so to speak, so you find a footing in it and enjoy it. I will say that first volume, Meg the Mechanic, the Rockets half of Love and Rockets is way more prominent. That'll change by the time you get to The Girl from Hoppers. But yeah, in the beginning, there's a lot more spaceships and dinosaurs than you'd probably expected.
Paul's just gonna have to go through and grade each volume, like on the percentage ratio between Love and Rockets.
Exactly.
This one is 80% Rockets. Okay.
Yeah.
It drops off pretty steeply after that first volume, but but I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, you'll please keep me abreast of your Love and Rockets reading experience. I think once you get to Girl from Hoppers, it really locks in and becomes something special, at least to me. So.
I have heard that, and I think Mike even tipped me off that while there is some overlap between the brothers in terms of interests, in terms of style, that there is a significant departure between the two.
Yes,
for him.
Yes, I definitely only recommended you Jaime Hernandez stuff. I like Gilbert stuff a lot, but it's a way more... that is definitely not for everybody. That is much more of an acquired taste, I think. So I think if you want to try that, try Heartbreak Soup, or that's probably the best place to start, Heartbreak Soup with him. But yeah, I think knowing your taste, I think you'll probably enjoy Jaime stuff a lot more.
Okay. That's fair.
Anyway, that's my Love and Rockets talk for this episode.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Next time I'm on the show where I'll talk about more. So
next year, you mean? Because you get to do this once a year.
That's it. We had to talk before the show.
I think one of the other things that I'm really proud of this last year is that we really got Nick into reading manga.
Yeah.
This year we're going to be working on Paul, but we did
dream
get Nick
the
to
impossible dream
the manga to the point where I'm going to reveal this right here and now on the show. That as for the 2022 reading list or reading challenge that we have on Goodreads, Nick has picked a manga volume as his book that he wants everybody to read. So just going to say, you guys, we did it. Everybody, the show's done. We
the Manchurian Candidate has been created. Yes.
But I don't know. I think that's really cool. I'm glad that you gave some stuff a shot. I know that like a lot of the stuff in the show we do, we rib each other about the things that we have interest in, and you know that Nick's going to read this and Mike's going to read that and Kara's going to read this. But I do
Nick's
think
going to keep reading Valiant forever. Oops.
But like I do appreciate that, like, I think we're all stepping outside of our box. We've always done that, and I applaud you, Nick, for stepping into a thing that I know you were very like I not averse to, I think, to start. But I was the same way, and we can all be manga lovers in the end. I'm certain of it. So I'm glad. I'm very happy for that.
It's such a good book. I will be shocked and surprised to see who doesn't give this book a try. Even if you're new to manga, wholly new to manga, I think it's such a beautiful book. It's such a funny book. For me, it's funny comic books is such a difficult thing to deliver. It really is, and this book nails it. So I'm excited to see what people think about it.
So make sure to check out the reading list, the reading challenge, when it comes out in February. That'll be out pretty soon.
I love how Mike's like, we all got out of our comfort zones, and I'm thinking about my pick, and I'm like, you don't even need to see my name to know that I picked that one.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with picking stuff that like you really love, but I also am just like, I feel I'm just happy to see, that Nick dug this book so much. It's great. It's fun.
This could almost be its own game. Honestly, you should almost drop the list of books, drop the list of names of people who picked books, and have people try to figure it out.
That could be fun.
Just
that
make your
could
own.
actually be.
Yeah. I'll throw that at the Goodreads organizers and see what they think.
Just make your own Wordle, but you have to pick the name of the person who picked the book.
But yeah, I think yeah, I don't know. Was there any last things you guys wanted to shout out before we wrap up here? Because I really
Any
we're going
last
long
things, Mike?
Oh, Kara, go ahead.
I'm
ahead,
hijacking
please.
the show right now.
Okay.
This is ridiculous. Okay, so the other day I couldn't sleep because my brain decided that what this episode really needed was the definitive list of I Read Comic Books hosts and which Sailor Scout they were.
Oh, right.
Wow.
God, I saw this in the notes and I totally forgot about it. Yes, please go ahead.
All right. So, as listeners to the show may know, I found the Sailor Moon manga to be really formative for me as a teenage girl reading these stories about these teenage girls saving the world through the power of friendship and also magical wands from the moon. So, as one does. But the series, I think, did have a lot of resonance with people because it came back to this like the friendship between the different characters and kind of this sense of how they all interact with each other. And then, of course, it's kind of a manga following these standard plots where it's like, okay, I know I'm going to fight a bad guy, and then in the next issue I'm going to fight another bad guy, and eventually I'm going to work my way up to the boss, and the series is going to end and I'm going to have like an ultimate boss. But like within that structure there are some like quieter character moments that come across really nicely. And as somebody reading this as a younger person, I just got totally lost in it. So it does, like Harry Potter, it's one of those things where at the back of my mind, I'm always just like, what Hogwarts house are you in? If you were a Sailor Scout, which Sailor Scout would you be and why? So it's like the Zodiac. I just need these frames of references. So I started making a list of which Sailor Scout corresponds with which IRCB host. And my methodology started out with which scout are you in terms of your role in the show and your dynamic in the show. But then there's like some Sailor Scouts where they have, like a little bit more about them, like because you spend more time with the what's called like the inner senshi. So like Sailor Moon, Sailor Venus, Sailor Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter. They're like the first characters that show up, so you spend more time with them and you know more about them. Whereas the outer planets, the outer senshi, including Pluto, because Pluto's totally a planet. You know a little bit less about them, so that was part of why I couldn't sleep, because I was like, how do I describe these characters in a way that doesn't fall back on their powers or the author's lists of what their favorite foods are?
Okay.
And then like some of these came really easily to me. Like Mike, I knew right away. Tia, I knew right away. And then at the end of my list, I had a small list without names associated, and it was me, Nick, and Renee. And I had a small breakdown because I was like, oh no, we're the same person in terms of this list. So,
yeah, the Chaos Trio. How dare you?
God.
Okay, so without further backstory, I'm going to tell you the Sailor Scout. I'm going to tell you the description that I came up with, and then I'm going to tell you the person I associated with that description. And you're going to tell me if you agree or if I'm full of shit, okay?
Okay.
We'll start out with Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon is the reason everyone is together and feels less alone. Emotionally expressive, likes video games and food. And it's Mike.
I mean,
that tracks.
You know it's Mike.
I'm blushing over here.
All right, this was one of my struggle ones, so feel free to fight me on this one. The next one's Sailor Venus. Loves a spotlight, hates authority, and has the best toys. And for this one, I picked Renee.
I mean, I can't argue with that.
No.
I was almost gonna say Tia, but that is Renee.
All right, I'm 2 for 2. All right, next up we've got Sailor Mercury. The studious one knows her way around a computer. Focused. It's always the quiet ones. That's Kate Scotchless.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. That's accurate. That works.
All right. Next, we have Sailor Mars. Strong sense of self and no time for useless men. Always wears heels. That's Tia.
Yeah. That sounds, that sounds right.
Yeah. Danny's calling it in the chat too. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we've got Sailor Jupiter. Tough as fuck, but really wants to be in love and be a florist and bake cakes and make life beautiful. And that's Kate Lamphere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is all winners so far.
All right,
Holy shit.
Here's where we get a little like more abstract because we know less about the outer Sailor Senshi. So next we've got Sailor Saturn. Tries their best to do the right thing even when everything hurts and they have no idea what's happening. Misunderstood kid. I gave this one to Brian.
Wow. I think that works.
Oh, Danny said Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say, ouch. I mean...
Oh, man, we're making our own BuzzFeed quiz. That's what we're doing. Holy shit.
Right,
I was going to say, BuzzFeed should be giving you a call real soon, Kara, because I think you might have a real, niche talent here.
I'm so good at content creation, you guys. All right, next we have Sailor Uranus. An almost overwhelming sense of duty. Plays the long game. Not fussed by convention and intense feels. I gave that one to Nick.
Intense feels for sure, yeah.
This has just been Nick's long ploy to get all of my comic books. If he can get into my good graces, I'll write him in the will. I think that's what this is.
All right. Next we have Sailor Neptune. Musical vibes. Patient, kind, deep, will absolutely fuck you up if you don't get out of their way. That's Paul.
Aww, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said. Yeah, that's totally true.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, that's...
Okay. All right. Next we have Sailor Pluto. Over there doing their own thing, but actually likes being included. Unrequited crushes. Rule follower unless friends are in danger. I gave that one to me.
I was going to say, if you didn't give that to you, I'm hijacking this quiz right now and I'm giving it to you.
All right. I've got two more and then one I didn't do and I'll explain why.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Luna and Artemis. The cats aren't usually in the middle of the fight because they're running the control room. That's Xander.
Wow.
Uh-oh. Xander's so happy that he said this.
I don't know if happy is the word.
I'm reading that as a happy OMG.
Okay.
In the chat.
Okay. All right. Then next to last, we have Tuxedo Mask, mysterious hero, Sailor Moon's love interest, flair for the dramatic entrance and exit. Honorary mention for Kelly.
This tracks. This is perfect.
Wow.
I'll let her know.
In the context of the show, Kelly is the mysterious one we never really interact with, but sometimes we hear in the background. So Kelly's Tuxedo Mask in the context of this show. And she needs a top hat and a bouquet of red roses immediately.
This is our next cosplay. I will be Sailor Moon and Kelly will be Black Mask.
Oh my! Don't even tease that, Mike. You can't.
Oh my god. Okay, so the other main character that I did not include is Sailor Chibi Moon, and there's just way too much to unpack here to subject anyone to this comparison. Sailor Chibi Moon is Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask's daughter from the 31st century who comes back in time, is 300 years old but looks like she's 6, and a bad guy turns her into an adult and she immediately tries to seduce her father. So like
Wow. I can see why that he wasn't assigned. Yeah. I mean, for starters, you'd have to figure out which one of us is really the time traveler, but beyond that, obviously there's some other problematic stuff going on too. So
Nick's wiping his brow. He's like, phew, they didn't figure out I'm a time traveler.
Yeah, I'm immediately regretting sending that video to Mike a couple weeks ago where it was like, was this computer in the 1980s evidence of a real time traveler? I didn't mean to. That was a copy paste from me, Mike. I didn't mean to send that your way.
That's okay. This is the most beautiful thing. I think we got to turn this into like a series of tweets or something, because this is fantastic.
Yeah,
honestly, this is almost enough for me to say we got to start the zine back up, just for this. Maybe we do a 4-page fold over zine just for this, because this is amazing. Oh, thank you so much for that, Kara.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me read it.
Well, I guess to wrap up the show, because I don't know how we can go off on a higher note than that.
No.
The one final thing that I want to say is we have a new Patreon series coming later this year that's going to be fantastic. Paul, could you tell us a little bit about this brand new child that you're birthing into this world?
Oh, you're putting it. That's a lot of pressure, Mike. No, but it is obviously anyone who's been listening to the podcast for a while knows that this is no surprise, something I've been wanting to do for a while. I'm happy to announce it here. Could we drop in the MTV News baseline thing where it goes, "You hear it first"? Thanks, Xander. We will be doing a series that we will be going to be calling A Better Batmobile, in which me and the rest of the people on the show will be reading Grant Morrison's Batman run, which stretched from about 2007 up and through 2011, I believe. It's a long series. It's a lot of comic books, and it's important to me because it's one of the things that got me back reading monthly superhero comics again. I started reading with Batman R.I.P., and it made me a bigger fan of Grant Morrison than I already was. Maybe think about Batman in ways I never thought before. So I wanted to do it for the show, and we have a fun little outline here, which I outlined all of the issues that Grant Morrison wrote, along with some supplementary material to explain their take on Batman. And we're shooting for 10 episodes where we will be discussing in excruciating detail all of the minor details and themes throughout Grant Morrison's Batman work. I'm so excited to do this, and I'm glad that people have volunteered to do it. I don't know if they're ready, know what they're really getting into, but hopefully it'll be fun when we figure it out. So
I'm super excited for this. If only because I know that I'm in it, and I know that the issues that I'm reading are going to be fantastic. So yeah, this is going to be a blast. We're working on getting art together and everything else organized, but Paul gave us an incredible pitch for this, and I'm so excited to see just what comes out of it. Like, this is going to be killer. So if you're not on the Patreon, make sure you do that. And subscribe, because that's coming later this year. Plus, you can get access to all of our other stuff that we have. The Saga of Saga series, which is a read-along series for Saga, which is about to come out, so get caught up. Giant Days of Our Lives, as we said. Paul and Mike read Doom Patrol, which is where Paul and I went through all of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, which is fantastic. Plus all the other exclusive stuff. We did like a full airing of a Q&A that we recorded for episode 300 just back in December. And then we also released like the full interview series that we did for episode 300. There's so much stuff on there. So yeah, go do that. Patreon.com/IRCB podcast. We'd really appreciate it. And you can get access to so much really, really cool stuff, including this brand new series. It's going to be amazing.
I will say, actually, Mike, now you mentioned it, Paul and Mike read Doom Patrol is a good place to start with this, because I think it would be a similar format for the show. And obviously we're talking about Grant Morrison in that show as well. So if you get a sense of the kind of deep dive we're going to do, unpacking all these themes, I think that Grant Morrison's Batman run is an elaborate chaos magic ritual that Grant Morrison does to make Batman a whole character and make Bruce Wayne happy. Does everyone else think that? I don't know, but we'll find out when we read Grant Morrison's Batman.
Amazing. Well, Nick, Kara, any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
Sandra makes the best magical moon cats.
Amazing. Well, cool. I guess next week's... Oh, go ahead.
One time, one of the cats falls in love with an astronaut and turns into a human just so they can kiss him before running away into the night, and thinks of them whenever they eat sugar candies.
Oh man, well, I'm gotta change up my credits template now to call Xander this. So anyways, next week's episode is going to be great. It's a Goodreads book of the month with me, Brian, and Kate. We're going to be talking about Pearl Volume 1 as selected by the Goodreads 2021 finishers. Everyone that finished our reading challenge last year picked this book as a great group. Appreciate Paul out there who put together Paul on the Goodreads group who put together a nice voting bracket and stuff like that to make sure that we picked the right book. That was exciting. And yeah, that's going to be next week's episode. You can always follow us on Twitter. You can follow Kara at Kara SM. You can follow Paul at Oh Hi Pauly, Nick at Death Star Plans, and me at Mike Rappin. Plus, you can follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at IRCB Podcast. The TikTok has been really, really fun. I hope you're following us over there because it's just really cool clips and everything.
This episode first aired on Patreon and is possible because of our wonderful patrons. Join today for exclusive series like the IRCB Movie Club, Saga of Saga, and Morrison. Join now at patreon.com/IRCB podcast.
Can we get that clip to be the theme music for that podcast, please?
Yes.
Please.
I'll do it with better enunciation. It's okay.
Perfect. Yeah. We'll fix it in post. If you haven't already, please rate and review our show. I think 5 stars is a fair rating. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you listen to podcasts. I think we deserve a rating, don't you guys? Join the RSP Discord community to chat about comics and much, much more. Plus, you can tune in and listen to the show's episodes as we record them live each week. There's a link in our to our Discord in the show notes.
Podcasts grow best when spread by word of mouth, so why not tell your friends, family, and local comic shop about IRCB? I know I do, and they tell me to stop bringing it up. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop.
Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all of our music. Xander is a magical moon cat, and he edits the show. He's amazing. I want to say thank you to Paul and Nick and Kara for being on this episode. Thanks to everybody that was hanging out with us in the Discord. We had so many people earlier today. I loved it. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, though, comics are good, and so are you.